I've worked at game studios before that have been a lot more rigid in terms of your working style. You know, if you're in at 5 minutes past 9, you get a bit of a telling off, but also you're expected to work until 10:30 at night. So it's kind of, you know, I wanted to very much veer away from that kind of company culture. I want to have a place where people enjoy coming into work, because I think one of the prerequisites of game development is that you actually are passionate about it. I know I am still, after 16 years. I'm not quite jaded yet. As a small independent studio, obviously there's lots of benefits to it, but also it can be quite testing and trying. So obviously we've been going for 6 years, which is good. There's lots of smaller studios around Newcastle that I've seen kind of come and go in that time. One of the most difficult things is kind of balancing your time between pitching for work, whether that's kind of work for hire that helps fund game development, or actually pitching for, you know, the big pieces of work in terms of, you know, getting a publisher involved. That's really time consuming, and there's a lot of effort involved, and you know, you have to have a demo and a really good pitch deck and this, that and the other, which is part and parcel of doing it. Balancing that with the actual really fun bit, which is making the games. That's the bit that, you know, really drives me, and it's the bit that I enjoy the most. It's, you know, it's when I'm getting phone calls at like 10 o'clock at night from my wife saying, "Are you coming home?" I'm like, "Oh wow, it's 10 o'clock, oops." Making the game is difficult, but then selling the game is just as difficult, and that's something that I think maybe I hadn't really grasped as much, and it's changed. It's constantly changing, and it's changed even in the last kind of 3 years since we released The Hungry Horde with Sony, to the point where we released Vostok we've had a couple of publishers. Obviously we've got all the press contacts and stuff now as well, but stuff like live streaming and Let's Plays, they have such a vital importance now. I mean, we got a Nerd Cubed recommended video. So this is a YouTuber who's got 2.7 million followers or something, and our sales for 3 days increased, I mean, dramatically, like a huge sales spike. And that was something I just didn't even, you know, I didn't even think about when we started out. So that sort of stuff is vitally important. There are studios opening here, so there's actually a really big game development community. I mean, you've got the sort of the biggest studios like Sumo Digital have got a studio here now. People Can Fly are just opening a studio. I think that's going to be at least 30 people, I'm not sure. I mean, they're fairly big. Fortnite, for example. Not just the North.EXeast, well, I suppose it's still North.EXeast, but there's like Game Bridge down in Middlesbrough. They put on a bus when they do some of their bigger events for free, so that developers from Sunderland and Newcastle can just get on the bus and head down and head back up.
When I was a kid, I was like that classic, like, you know, nerdy kid who loves technology, you know, games consoles, game computers, all that kind of stuff. But over the course of the years, the kind of my focus and interest in games became very much more focused on narrative experiences. I'm very drawn by, because I like, you know, I like to read a lot. I like to watch films, TV, like most people were. Also, when I lived in London, I went to a lot of theatre, especially a lot of immersive theatre, like Punch Drunk and Secret Cinema. And I'm very personally interested in where the games as a medium can take us with interactive storytelling. VR is an emotion multiplier, right? So things that are scarier in VR. Things that are wondrous are more wondrous in VR. So yeah, we do a lot of work with our London studio, capturing real actors and actresses and placing them in volumetric captures. And the thing about that is, in VR, talking to another person that's a real person there's a real connection you can get there that I absolutely love, and that's kind of what the thing we're experimenting a lot with at the moment. my classic inspirations are things like Silent Hill games that were like, especially Silent Hill 2, which was a game that was a horror game, but all about people's personal struggles and journeys through different, guilt in their lives and stuff like that. I'm super inspired by that, and I kind of want us to make experiences that are like that. And at Hammerhead, we do a whole bunch of different things, but that is definitely one of the streams that we're really focused on. We're talking to the sort of lots of different companies and studios and people around the world about how we can take what we do to do virtual humans and storytelling that is kind of like really emotive and captures people in a way that games traditionally haven't done. I mean, sometimes they have, but we're in a beautiful position. We're at the cutting edge of technology, which isn't always the best thing. We're not just about having better graphics. We're trying to use VR, volumetric capture, all these different things to try and bring people more emotional experiences than they've traditionally been able to get.
That's what they said for Network. They put the previews in the engine so that they can walk around them. My job as a producer is to ensure that we ship the projects on time, on schedule, on budget.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's just obviously this has already been discussed, but.
In my time in game dev, I've shipped quite a few projects. The first project I shipped was Just Dance with Ubisoft, and that was really, really fun because it's a dancing project. And I was a tester on that, so that was so much fun. And then I worked on Watch Dogs as well for a time as a tester. And from there, I moved into production, and I was working on Tom Clancy's The Division, plus all the download content. And then I started on The Division 2, but that's when I moved to Hammerhead, and I've been at Hammerhead about a month, which has gone really fast. And I've been working on production pipelines and all sorts of different internal schemes, as well as doing production for a bunch of different projects, and it's been really exciting to work on loads of different things at once. I think one of the cool things about Hammerhead is because it's small, everybody gets to know each other quite quickly. It was really noticeable when I joined that there's, like a sense of friendship. People obviously care about each other. They're very encouraging about each other's work, which is really lovely as well. And we were encouraged to kind of express ourselves and be ourselves at work, and you can see that on people's desks they have a lot of their own stuff. So they have like anime figures, so we've got fans of Star Wars, we've got all sorts of stuff that people kind of use to express their personalities and things, which is really cool to see. A few kind of methods that I use to run the team is we use daily scrums, daily stand-ups to make sure that everybody is kept up to date with the things that we're doing, everybody's on track.
Down for that. Yeah.
Not yet. No. Maybe after this discussion.
But we need to mark off a day, right? I think because it's working today.
So today. Nice. Cool.
So usually we have a bunch of post-it notes on the board that detail the tasks, how long they're going to take, and then we also track how long they're actually taking, so we can make sure that we're on time.
How long does that take you in total?
3.5 days in total.
Nice.
How many have I got in here to get through? 4.
The team will go around and give us updates about their progress. They'll also inform us if they're having any issues, and it's kind of a space where the team can also help each other. So artists and programmers, designers, everybody will be in the scrum together, so that's the kind of place where everything becomes unblocked or if there's any issues, so that's been really useful for us.
There you go.
We want everybody to be on top of understanding their tasks and how their tasks fit into like the broader kind of like spectrum, and we always want everybody to be working towards a goal. But it's really great for communication and for even just like team morale, like having everyone be excited about the project every day is a really, really nice change from working in like different environments where everyone's just kind of head down working all the time.
Yeah, when you're splitting it up and then unwrapping it and then exporting.
Diversity is a really important topic to me. I really care about people feeling welcome in our industry. I feel that diversity has the opportunity to bring fresh ideas, fresh innovations to the industry, and it's just so important that if somebody wants to work here, that they are welcomed, that they feel like they can be part of the community, and yeah, it's just so important to me.
Because I haven't been in the industry that long, like just like a year and a half, it's hard for me to say or compare or contrast my experience working as a developer in a company producing things to balance that with my experience as a gamer, being involved in stuff as a consumer and a player, where I find that being a player is a very hostile environment for a woman. I find that it's difficult for me to go online or go out there and make friends as fellow gamers, and I found that quite difficult from when I was in university as well, trying to cultivate friendships with other people in video game societies and such. It wasn't always the most welcoming place. The dev scene is like the complete antithesis of that. It's like the dev scene is like everybody knows everyone's in it for the same reasons, and everybody has the same end goal, which is just to make awesome stuff. So that shared passion kind of like brings everyone together rather than pushes people apart.
At Ubisoft, I developed loads of friendships with female members of staff, and like I've made best friends for life from that, and that's so lovely. We all started together on Just Dance, so it was really cool to meet other female game developers. And obviously growing up, it's very hard to get a picture of what the industry is like from the outside, and that's why I feel that female role models are really important. It's important to be able to see someone that you're familiar with or that you identify with. And I do mentoring with young girls in schools, and they often sometimes feel that games are still a boys thing. Sometimes that perception is still there, which is always surprising to me, but it still exists. And so if they have someone there encouraging them, someone visible, I think that can make a difference to them.
So hi, I'm Laura. I recently started an independent company with two of my ex-colleagues from Ubisoft. So our company's called High Tea Frog, and this is the first time we showed our game, which is Cake Bash. I knew since a very young age that I wanted to make video games. I think it was when I was playing Ocarina of Time and I watched Link do the little idol animation where he's like checking his shield and everything. I thought, how did someone make that? Yeah. I was really intrigued by it. I wanted to know more about it. So I started like studying how to draw and learned a little bit about animation. So originally I wanted to be an animator for Nintendo. Things change. I ended up working for Ubisoft. Yeah, Ubisoft Reflections in Gosford, and I was there for 4.5 years. So I worked on like a whole range of stuff. Like I worked on The Crew, The Division, Grow Up, which is a sequel to Grow Home, and then eventually Atomega, which is like a less well-known game, but that was really good fun. And then we just decided that we wanted to try something a bit different and decided to make the leap into indie development.
I'm moving now.
Yeah, we tried making a whole bunch of different prototypes. I think we made about 4 or 5 different prototypes. Most of them just came out of a mad idea, like just writing something on paper or a sketch. And this one I think started as you're a donut and you have to hit people and you have to be the tastiest. And we just thought it was really funny, so we gave it a go, and it turned into probably the most interesting prototype, so we just decided to develop it a bit further. If you hold down the X button, yeah, I think the community's definitely helped us out with this transition into independent development. I think because we're still really new, like it's still our first year of development. It's all about just trying to get our name out there and people to know that we exist. I think that just knowing people around has been really helpful. Like there's a Slack, you know, like a chat room thing, but it's just for UK game developers, and they've answered so many questions that I've had no idea about. Like, how do I get a dev kit? Like, who do I talk to for this thing? Anyone got a contact at this studio? It's just great because everyone's so open about everything.
How's I eat?
So I'm not from here. I'm from France. I moved here to work with Ubisoft. Ubisoft Reflection is in Newcastle, and then I went back because I wanted to do different things, and I came back here because I love it here.
What am I doing?
I was lucky enough to, after having worked on AAA games, to be able to work in another team called Little A, which is a team who released Grow Up, and Atomega, for example, and Rod more recently. So the nice thing is that I already had that kind of indie feeling. It's not that indie because you have like a big company behind you. It was nice because you still are in a smaller team and you can participate in a smaller project where everyone has an input. But it still wasn't enough for me. I still, I think, wanted to do more and to get even more like something which could be ours, but where we could make the decision, not depending on some other people. So even if it was going to be harder, for sure, that's what we decided to leave and to just say, okay, now let's make our thing, where we decide what we do, how we do it, what we think is the best way to do things. Even if it means maybe failing sometime, but at least it's our failure if it was, and when it's going to be a success, it's going to be our success too, and not the company.
How can I not look that? Yeah.
So I think the North.EXEast is a great place for game development in general. There's a whole bunch of studios, like there's Sumo Digital, and then there's Nosebleed Interactive, Hammerhead VR, and we always have like these kind of game dev meetups, I think once a month, and we always go to like different pubs and we see each other, we talk about our games when we're allowed to talk about the games.
One of the things that I hear from people outside of the games industry that really surprises them is that rather than kind of being this cutthroat, everyone's against each other, everyone's competing against each other. I mean, obviously we are competing against each other for people's money and time, but it's such a small industry that if you've been working in it for a little while, you will know someone everywhere. And I think we're a lot more kind of collaborative than people maybe realise. So, you know, we'll I mean, just as an example, there's a company just over the river in Gateshead called Pocket Money Games. Frankie, their kind of boss man, his first games industry job was at Nosebleed, and he left to spin that out. But we've got really good kind of ties, and you know, we've worked on stuff together. And you know, if there's a bit of work for hire that's come in that he's not been able to do, he might push it our way, and vice versa.
People ask the question a lot, why is the North.EXEast this kind of hub of games development? And I think a lot of it is to do with the big AAAs kind of closing down, or big AAAs being here and laying people off and things like that. So you either have a choice of travelling around a lot, or starting your own independent company, or working for an independent company. Pocket Money Games is a traditional games company that does everything from flat games all the way through to VR. As an educator, my role was to get students into work. So I'd go out to employers and ask them what they needed me to teach them. And the main answer was, they need experience. That's the one thing I couldn't teach. So the idea of my original studio was we'd have an open door policy, I'd start a games company, and students would be free to come in and get placements and work experience that they needed to work in the industry. We've released 3 VR games to date. We're just about to launch our 4th. We worked with a guy called Rob Yescombe, who was the writer on Division, Rime, Invisible Hours and things like that. So we're doing a kind of indie AAA, and alongside that we're releasing 8 smaller kind of classic indie titles based on kind of classic arcades and platformers, twin stick shooters, things like that. I think things have changed dramatically over the last few years, where it was originally these big AAAs. The smaller indies have made it more of a community vibe, running the kind of the game dev drink side of it. You see people from Middlesbrough, from Sunderland, Newcastle, and we get AAAs all the way down to one-man bands and things like that. So it's a lot more of a kind of community feeling to everything. So the Proto building is a new R&D space, a new office block for primarily XR companies, or people that are kind of in immersive technology. So the idea is that over time we can have technology that would only be accessible by AAA companies, photogrammetry, volumetric video, motion capture and things like that, sound recording booths, your kind of standard stuff that you'd have in a AAA studio or you'd outsource to, but it's very cheap for indies to kind of use that space. And alongside that, the idea is that we are drawn in companies from across the UK to Gateshead to have everyone in kind of, and to be able to support each other in that environment. So the original game dev wasn't ran by me, it was ran by a guy called Callum Underwood, who worked for Oculus and now works for Caffeine and Superhot, places like that. So he kind of put this thing in place, but it was only every so often it ran. And then me and Jonathan Wilson from CodeSync kind of wanted something a bit more regular. So we had an offshoot of the bigger one called the mini monthly meet, which has now kind of become the normal meet for everyone. And it wasn't designed as a networking event, it was designed as a support mechanism for companies and people to, you know, have a drink and a chat, like-minded people that work in the same industry, to kind of get to know each other and build a community up. I think being from the North.EXEast naturally makes us kind of welcoming community, at least I like to think that. So I'm normally the first person to get the round in.
This event we run it on the first Friday of every month, and we see it as kind of like just a kind of laid back way of engaging with the community, like the development community, which is very strong. We've got Ubisoft, we've got Sumo, we've got Coating, we've got stuff like Hammerhead, Hedgehog Labs, and there's lots of developers in the North.EXeast. And what we started to realise, there wasn't really much of a community gathering anymore. When I was in university, we did have a dev drink thing, something similar to this. The consistency of it kind of fell off and kind of went away, and it wasn't happening that regularly. And kind of the origins of this kind of all came about with me and Frankie Kavanagh were in a pub. We're kind of like long-time friends anyway, and we decided we would try to run one, but commit to doing it on the first Friday of every month. And kind of the whole premise of it is, it doesn't matter whether myself or Frankie can't make it, we will still organise and put the event on, and hopefully people will still turn up, and it just keeps going. So the way we looked at it was, we were all kind of doing this sort of thing. We were only networking with ourselves. It was almost like every studio was living in a bubble sort of thing, or living in isolation. So we looked to bring a format that was open to everyone. You can come and join. You can have cross-studio conversations, like freely, openly, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to talk about. We never really branded it as a networking event. That's not how we see this. We literally see this as like a Friday beers. Like, you've been at work all week. You want to come and kick back. You want to chill out. Come and join us. Have a few pints. You might meet some new people. You might have an interesting conversation. You don't really know what's going to come out of it. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what opportunities you can get from it. And we had such a positive response, and a lot of people were like, we've wanted this for a while, like just to have that anchor point. So we've kept doing it, and people still keep coming. Numbers fluctuate every month, but the way we see it is, we don't care if there's only 10 of us here, because even if there's only 2 of us here, we'll still run it on the first Friday of every month.
I'm not from here originally, I'm from Bradford, and I've lived here for, it's coming up to like 7 years now, so obviously there's something about it that's really cool. I feel like everybody in the scene supports each other, and you end up knowing loads of different people from loads of different companies, and it feels like it's such a small world, but it feels like it's a really supportive world as well.
I've never met anybody in the games industry who isn't working towards the goal of the whole community becoming a more approachable place and a more involved place that embraces everybody from different backgrounds, different cultures, different worldviews even. You know, we all want to create something where the most people possible can enjoy and be involved, and I think that is really strange to hear that, you know, and to see that people in that community want to exclude those people. It's really sad, and it's disheartening when, you know, you get kind of backlash for wanting more people to enjoy these things, but it will never ever, if anything, it makes us work harder towards that goal, because then eventually more people will feel embraced and will feel like they can become a part of it, and it'll just become natural to be in that community and be enjoying it.